Hello. Good morning, all. Thank you. My name is Maria Marcelino. I'm with Liberty Bay Credit Union. We're new to town, and I am a new member of the board for the chamber, for the Scituate Chamber. The chamber would like to thank all of our candidates for coming this evening, our moderator James, and you all for coming to hear what they have to say. A few housekeeping. If you need to go through the bathroom, it's through that door there, and there are exits. As you can see, we have to make sure that those are available and everyone knows about those. Let's see. If you could take a few minutes and read through your the rules here. At the bottom is the proper decorum. There will not be any questions from the audience. We've asked everyone to email those in, and you've done a wonderful job with that. We have it's a hearty night of questioning, and I think that's it. James will give you the rules on how this is going to work and how your answering will happen and take place. But we thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Oh yeah, and Linda is reminding us that we don't want any clapping afterwards, so we can make sure things keep going smoothly. So just introduce. Oh, and if everyone could make sure their cell phones are on airplane mode or silent, just so we don't have any disruptions on that front either, it would be great. Appreciate it. Cool, so just to introduce myself real quickly, my name is James Coxtus. I'm a senior multimedia journalist with the Mariner newspapers. I'm really excited to be here tonight. This is a very strong turnout. I've not seen this many people at a candidates forum in a long time, if ever, so this is pretty awesome to see. Just to go over the rules very quickly before we get started, each candidate is going to start with a 3-minute opening statement where we go through all the candidates, including the ones who are running unopposed that have chosen to speak. Then we'll have a series of questions which have been submitted through email, like Maria said, to us, and I've gone through those questions and kind of just consolidated them, making sure we don't have any duplicates. And we're going to get to as many of those as we can throughout the course of the evening. Most of the questions are directed towards the candidates for selectmen, so we're going to stay focused on that race for the most part, as that's the one that's most contested right now, with the 4 candidates running for the seat being vacated by John Ganny. During the question and answer portion, each candidate is going to be given 2 minutes to respond. And Maria's in the back, and she's just 2 little pieces of paper for the candidates. 30 seconds left will be the yellow, and then when your time is up, she's going to flash the red over there. So again, we just want to make sure there are a lot of you guys who do a lot of questions, and we want to get to as many as we possibly can in the time allotted. So I'm going to hurry up with the rules. And then at the end, every candidate is going to get a 2-minute closing statement as well. We'll go in the opposite order that we went into the first when we did the closing. Cool. So that goes through the rules. We're going to start by offering the uncontested candidates 3-minute opening statements. And we're going to start with Mike.
Good evening. My name is Mike Hayes. I am running for, I believe, my 14th term on the selectmen. I've not had on the selectmen. On the school committee. I've never wanted to be on the selectmen. So I think I've been on it for 36 years. I've had one agenda my whole period of time on the school committee, and that's to do the best I can for the 3,000 kids that go to school in Scituate, including my own children and my grandchildren. So I have a vested interest in them and all of the kids. During years past, we used to know most kids by the time they get into the high school through various events and sporting events. So I am very dedicated and grateful that I've been on the school committee. The school budget, in my opinion, other than fire and police, is the most important function of town government. We are, though, a $41 million budget. We are a cash-eating machine, and we have over 500 people on the staff of the school system, and they are all dedicated to giving the best education we can to our kids, and we have, in my opinion, a terrific school system, one of the best in the state. We're very fortunate with our new superintendent and his administrative team. He's a young man with a lot of vision, a lot of energy, and his goals are the same as mine. as well as being very transparent and explaining to the town where our money comes from and where it goes. I'm also very grateful that he, like me, is a dedicated supporter of art and music in our town. I think it's vital to a successful school department. If you have a successful school department, chances are you have a vibrant music and art program. So that is about it. My goals for the next 3 years are to continue where we are. We're doing a little bit better this year than we have in the past due to strict budget requirements. We were very fortunate and our negotiating team for our current contracts, which I was a part of, and the teachers were a part of, and we settled a very advantageous contract for the town of Scituate this year, because they too are all dedicated to doing what's best for the children. And I'll just say one more thing on my theory of education, is if you have good teachers and small class sizes, you're going to have a good educational system. And we have worked very hard over the last 5 years to get small class sizes, and I'm convinced we have the best teachers in the state. So thank you. I hope I get more votes than blanks.
Thank you so much. So we'll stick with the school committee candidates and go to Nicole Brantley next.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tough to follow Mike, actually, but I'll do my best. Hi, my name is Nicole Brantley. I'm mother of 4 children. They are 9, 8, 4, and 2. So I have a 4th grader at Cushing and a 2nd grader at Cushing, and then one who is in preschool and has 1 more year to go, and then a little 2-year-old. So he is he'll be there soon enough, as we all know. So I've been a member of the Cushing School Council for 5 years, ever since my oldest was in kindergarten. It's been wonderful learning kind of more about the inner workings of the school that way. I'm also a school adjustment counselor myself, so I work in a few different communities. I work in Berkeley, Mass. I work for Bristol Plymouth Tech School, and I do lots of socio-emotional learning. So that's a piece to me that's really, really important to the development of all kids in our district. I also serve on the Cushing School PTO. I've been the vice president for 4 years. So I do all the major fundraising, which goes towards pretty much all programming that comes in. So any kind of outside learning initiatives that come in, we kind of fund all that through PTO. I have a degree in communications also from BU, and I have a master's from Bridgewater State. So like I said, I'm a licensed adjustment counselor. So anything socio-emotional learning is a large part of my training and experience for many, many years now. And I also do, I'm a family support counselor, so to me, connecting the family and school unit together to work together, good, strong communication is very important to me as well. So as a parent in Scituate, also my husband grew up in Scituate. He's a graduate of Scituate Public Schools, and he's somebody who sort of didn't have a good life at home and really was raised by the wonderful teachers and community. So we strongly felt that it was the right place for us to move back to after college to raise a family. So we're really dedicated to the town, the school system, and its success. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Next up, we'll have the new moderator, unofficially so far, but James Toomey.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jim Toomey. I've lived in Scituate on Millgate Street for 23 years with my wife Barbara. My background is I'm a retired attorney. I was a founding partner of a firm of Murphy, Hesse, Toomey and Lahane, located in Quincy. The main part of my practice was representing school committees in cities and towns. I was the town council in Hingham for 25 years, Hanover for almost 30, and then at the end of my time, I retired in 2016. For the last 7 years, I was the town council here in Scituate. When I heard that Rich Bowen wasn't going to run, I've been looking ways to get involved in town. I thought this is something that, given my experience, I've been to more town meetings than I can count. I thought this would be a good way for me to use my background experience and get involved again in the town. Basically, my approach to town meeting is twofold. First is to effectively get the town's business done, make sure we cover all of the legal bases and the requirements, and at the same time, make sure that this form of democracy stays alive, everyone feels they can come, participate, and we have a fair and full debate on whatever issues are of interest to the town. So I hopefully will serve you as moderator. I look forward to doing that. Lastly, I want to say I'd like to commend and thank Rich Bowen. He's been a terrific moderator, and I hope I can do nearly as well as he's done. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Jim. As Ruth and I can both attest to, covering different towns and town meetings, a good moderator makes things a lot less painful for everyone at town meetings, so good luck. All right, next up, we're going to have the two candidates for library trustee. We have Kevin Carlton and Elizabeth Holthoff. Sorry if I butchered that last name.
I think it's obvious. I'm Kevin Carlton. I've lived in Scituate since 1986. I'm a relative newcomer. I've been on the library board for 21 years, and I'm running for re-election chiefly because we have a wonderful new facility, and I'd like to make sure that we keep it that way, that we maintain it from the get-there. And I should turn this over to Elizabeth.
And we're here together because we're not running against each other. We're both incumbents. And when I ran for my first term 3 years ago, Kevin got a lot more votes than I did because his name comes first in the alphabet. And it was funny. It was like, we should have gotten approximately the same. It doesn't matter because we're running out of post, but we're really here together. This is my second term. Kevin's like under or something. I came to the Board of Trustees of the library by way of the Library Foundation. 3 years ago, I had been on the foundation. I had worked very aggressively for the passing of the override vote at town meeting and then to get us on the ballot in the special election that cold December day. So that was a very exciting process. And once that passed and the new library became a reality, I really became very interested in staying with it and seeing, having a much broader role in the governance of the library. So it's been a very exciting 3 years because we did open this beautiful new library. Our role is primarily advocacy for the library, both within the community and at the state and federal levels for funding. And we do a lot of that pretty simply by emailing and calling our state reps and things. I've gone to a couple of library legislation days at the State House. I'm also on the strategic building planning. When Karen Canfield, Public Building Commission.
We back each other up.
When Karen Canfield became the selectman, I took over her role representing the library on that. So there's been that, but we're wrapping up that project now. There's just a few loose ends left. However, the biggest thing I worked on that I enjoyed the most was the strategic planning process. I participated in a community-wide committee that the director, Jesse Finney, put together, and it was very exciting. And it was the thing that really kind of nailed down in my mind the fact that I wanted to run again because I really wanted to stay with the library for another term or more beyond that and see how this new strategic plan plays out. There's a lot of exciting things going on at the library, and I really want to see it become an even greater community resource than it currently is. So that's us. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Excellent. Okay, so I don't know if we can pass the mic down if that works. Do you guys think you can speak loudly enough?
I think so.
Okay, we'll try that. If it doesn't work, we'll adjust. Cool, so we'll start by starting with Ann and going that way down. First of all, we're gonna have the candidates for planning board. And so there we have Ann Burgoyne and, sorry, making a list. And so you and Steve Pritchard are both running for the 2 seats, is that correct?
Correct.
Great. And then we have Rebecca right there. And,
Yep.
Yep, and your opponent is not here right now. Oh, all right, so just so you guys know, there are 3 seats up, one's the alternate, one's the 2, and there we go. Start with it.
I think you all can hear me. I have one of those loud voices, and I'm often moving the question at town meeting, what I'm well known for. I've been on the planning board now for 3.5, 4 years, now up for another 3 years, and it's a job I truly love. This is a very important town. We are exceedingly busy at the planning board with developments, with zoning, with all kinds of different things. And I love what I do. I'm involved with the Economic Development Commission, I'm involved with community preservation, as well as the planning board. And we do plan. We do not develop things, but we make recommendations, we have hearings, they're open to the public, and everyone needs to be treated fairly and need to be heard. So again, I look forward to another 3 years of serving this community because I love this town. I've been in this town now for almost 50 years. I'm getting old, but that's okay. So I will continue to move on and do the best I can for you. It's not about me, it's about the town, and it's not about right now. It's a vision of 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Where do we want to be and how are we going to get there? And that's my goal. How do we get there? With your input, it will happen. Thank you.
Rebecca.
Okay. Hi, my name is Rebecca Lewis. I have lived in this town over 27 years. I've raised my family here. I have 4 daughters, and the youngest one is still at Scituate High. Last fall, I was appointed to be the alternate planning board member because there was a vacancy there. So I've been on the planning board since then. Since that time, I have learned a tremendous amount. When you first get on the planning board, it's a little intimidating just because there's so many rules and regulations that you need to have some understanding with, but I feel like I'm up to speed, and I'd really like to continue my role as alternate member of the planning board, and I'm really looking forward to working with the other members on the planning board, and also the people, the town planners, Brad, Karen, and Shari. They've also been wonderful to work with, and I'm looking forward to taking a bigger role and being able to be on one of the advisory committees. So I would really like to stay on the planning board. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks so much.
Thanks, Rebecca and Ann. Members of the planning board. I'm also a member of the planning board right now. I've been on the planning board for about 5 years. My name is Steve Pritchard, by the way, for those of you who don't know me. My background is really as sort of educated as an engineer. I'm in finance these days, but it's all been in a world that has involved planning. And I spent a lot of my time in the energy business, and I spent 4 years in state government in multiple roles, including the commissioner of the DCR and the Secretary of Environment in Massachusetts. So I've had a fairly sort of interesting career, but my daughter went to school here. She graduated from here. She's now down in Washington, D.C., doing the things, you know, your kids do. And when she graduated, I was looking for something to do to try to give back to the town, and that's how I got involved in planning board. And I started as a fill-in, as an alternate, and I've enjoyed my time there. I've enjoyed the members that I've worked with, and certainly all of the input we've gotten from the town. And I think of the planning board as sort of multiple roles. One is really more sort of the nuts and bolts, the blocking and tackling of development, because we get development, as Ann said, we don't do development, we review development or propose development. And we get that sort of project by project, and so there's a lot of minutia and a lot of details to wade through. And then we have a different level responsibility, and that's for master planning. And in fact, in another month or so, we're going to kick off the update to the current master plan in town. And I would encourage everybody here and everybody else at home listening to participate in that. The master plan hasn't been updated in about 15 years or so, and it's really about time. The master plan still talks about the train coming to Scituate. So it's time, and that's really one of the primary roles of the planning board, is to manage that process and ensure that a master plan is developed. We don't do all the planning ourselves. Our charge is really to put all that planning together. So I think see that as one of the major activities that we're going to undertake in the next 3 years. I would like to continue to support and represent Scituate on the planning board. I'm not sure it's for everybody, but it's a lot of work. But I have enjoyed it immensely, and I would like to continue to do that. And the last piece is really, as I said, I would encourage you to get involved in helping us balance, the development, the natural resources, the infrastructure in town, and all of those elements that have to be balanced really at sort of a retail basis and at a high level basis. So, thank you all.
Thank you guys very much. All right, so now we're going to start with the selectmen candidates. I'm going to start with Karen, and we're going to go down the row, and then again for closing statements, we're going to go the opposite direction.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Karen Connolly, and I'm running for the Board of Selectmen. My parents moved to Scituate in 1965, bought a cottage in Shore Acres, and 2 years later decided we liked it here so much we would stay. I went to high school at Notre Dame Academy in Hingham, and then graduated and went on to Syracuse University. So I went from a little tiny girls' school to the biggest place I could find, about as far away as I could find. And graduated from there with a bachelor's degree in journalism and political science. After that, I went to work in Boston, and I worked in Boston for 20 years. I worked at New England School of Law, I worked at the Massachusetts Commerce Department, and I also worked at Fidelity Investments in Boston for 15 years in corporate communications. In 1995, I was lucky enough to meet my now husband, Kevin, and my mother was still living in town here, but she was not well. And so we thought, well, if we're going to buy a house, we'll buy it here. And so we did. Since then, I've been very involved in town politics, very involved in my community. I was the co-president of the Jenkins PTO when it first opened, which was quite a challenge. We opened that school with no clocks on the walls, no books in the library, and had to spend a lot of time integrating 2 different school populations into one and making the place work. And although a lot of people thought we were the lucky ones because we got the new school, the problem was we had challenges that the other schools did not have. But it's thriving now and it's working out very well, I think. I have attended 23 town meetings. Not as many as Jim Toomey, but 23. So I have been there at town meeting when the important things that come before this town are decided. It is the most democratic form of government. There is no more open form of government than an open town meeting, and that's what we've got here. Challenges to that, yes, but there are some benefits to it as well. I was the chair of the Yes for Scituate Committee in 2007. That provided operating funds for the schools and the town. Unfortunately, those 2 questions passed, and we bought books for a curriculum for the whole school system. What didn't pass that year were 2 things: opening a fire station, manning a fire station, and most unfortunately, the senior center. We worked really hard to get 5 votes yes on that ballot, and we only got 2. Now, leaving aside the fire station, which was controversially placed in Mclaughlin, the real disappointment to us was the senior center.
But I will tell you, as far as I'm concerned, the same thing happened then and it's starting to happen now. All the naysayers come out and start throwing things and try to derail the project. So we all have our pocketbooks to consider and we all have our consciences, but I'm just encouraging everyone to come out and vote. I'm going to wrap it up. I was 6 years on the advisory committee, which prepares all of the booklets for town meeting. And I've been the chair of the Community Preservation Committee for 4 years, and I'm still a member. I think the CPC has done a wonderful job for the town of Scituate. I'm a positive person, and that's why I really want to work for the town. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Andrew, up next.
Thank you. I'd ask everyone here, next time you're in North Scituate, excuse me, look across the street from the old Hingham Bank. You'll see a small fire hydrant there. Our fire hydrant has a yellow plastic bag over it. That plastic bag has been there for 2 years. When Jamie's burnt down, I've been told that the firefighters went to plug it in and dust came out. To me, that's one of the most symbolic things about why I think we as a town can do better. If you're looking for someone to continue the status quo who's done what we've done before, don't vote for me. If you're looking for someone to think differently, to ask the hard questions, and to do what's right, I ask for your vote. My name is Andrew Goodrich. I went to Georgetown, and after Georgetown, I worked in the state legislature. I was both a budget analyst, lucky enough to be in the room during the conference committee when they're doing the state budget, and then was senior staff in Governor Mitt Romney's administration. And I did external affairs. That's when folks come in. Most folks don't come in to say, hey, you're doing a great job. They come in because they have issues and problems and you want to talk. And the greatest lesson I learned there was to listen and to connect people to the right people. From there, I worked in the senior staff with Governor Kerry Healy. And we worked on what I believe meaningful legislation dealing with drunk driving and other issues. I spent the last 10 years of my life doing communications, but mostly working with nonprofits on patient access issues. It brought me to have some great interactions with my good friends down at the South Shore Peer Recovery. And if you haven't been there and talked to those folks, it's an amazing staff. But more than anything, I'm the father of 3. An 8-year-old, as of yesterday, an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old, all boys. It's a very rambunctious house. They're all going to be going to Wampatuck. 2 of them already do. And I'm here today to look to the future. I am so invested for my children and for your children. And I'm asking for your vote because I know we can do better and I want to listen. I know I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to work with you. And I'd be excited and it would be such an honor for me to work for this town. Thank you.
John next.
Hi, my name is John Mclaughlin. I've been in Scituate recently for the past 10 years. I have 3 children, 132, 130, and still to shock my surprise, my 15-year-old. So, with that said, she went through the Scituate system, and I was disabled. I got hurt pretty bad, broke my back and neck in 19 places. I was in a wheelchair, could never walk again, never talk again at one time. With technology and advancements back and forth, I learned how to do things. And I interacted with the veterans, I interacted with other people that were disabled and hurt back and forth. And we learned how to be independent, but work as a team and move forward. At the same time, I realized that everything, they're trying to make changes in the towns to make it better to access buildings, not just for disabled people, but it made it easy for everybody else. But it's not just how to access them, it's the gathering, to feel socially involved, to be involved with people to make the community better. With that, I got involved in other committees back and forth. I joined the Commission of Disabilities. I became the chairperson. And I entrenched myself in every course imaginable, ADA compliant, for roads, for buildings, for medical fields, and so on. In doing such, I'm being allotted whether there be grants to be exposed for someone with this ability to apply because they want someone high up, because they want to make sure ADA compliant rules are enforced. If you follow most of the committees, you go to back and forth to televise, ADA compliance seems to be a bad word, and it's not. It means everybody has a fair shot. It makes everything more acceptable, more friendly, more adaptable. And with that, it comes down to this. I am the only one that still continues third time trying to be selectman. Okay, so hopefully third time's a charm. I'm looking forward for your support. I have done projects for the boardwalk at the lighthouse. That wasn't going to pass. I went down there and I advised the person, I'm not going to fail it, but I said, you need these tweaks to do. Not only did they took my advice and they made it so they put side ramps on so no one could fall off. They put what I call the butt out. Sort of like if you're on a swinging bridge, you know, two wheelchairs going the same way, who's going to back up? No, you have a butt out so one can turn in. And that became a beautiful landmark for the town. Also, other areas, parks, recreation. I went through every school building. I evaluated the system, not just took pictures. I actually checked the pressures, the weights, and measurements, so we know where they physically stand. When it comes to transition plan, I'm the only one trained and certified to educate the town for it and actually develop them. And is that it? Thank you very much. I hope I have your vote.
Thanks, John.
Good evening. First off, I want to honor God, actually. So that's the first thing I want to say, actually. So I was born in 1974 in Boston. My family has been here. My dad was born in 1948 here, and my grandfather was born in 1922, and before that I don't really know. It's an honor to stand before you. It truly is. Scituate was settled in 1630 and incorporated in 1636. We have 31.8 square miles of land. I believe it's 17.2, total land, 17.2 of land, and then the 14.6 of water, if that adds up. As a town, Scituate, we have 1,700 veterans, 3,000 students, as Michael mentioned, and then the rest of us. I believe the number one issue facing us today is the brown water. I've never known anything different than brown water. I bathed in it. I've been drinking it for 44 years. Shaved with it. I think it's time we fix it. In 2013, we enacted the Safe Water Drinking Act. We raised water rates, and we started to fix the pipes around here. We've only done 22 miles out of 110 miles of pipe, and that cost us $21 million. I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more about the water, and I hope we do. The second thing in my opening statement I would like to say is about the senior center. My grandmother, Margaret Wadrup, some of you may know her, Peggy, lives in Wheeler Park. We failed to do the senior center that we had planned out for the town. It wasn't involved. That was $1 million we wasted right there. We went from $19 million senior center to $12 million senior center. That's not good enough for me. And I look forward to the rest of tonight. And God bless you all.
Excellent, thanks guys. So for the question and answer portion of the evening, the answers are going to be limited to 2 minutes instead of 3 like the opening statements. And because we started with Karen the first time, we're going to start with Andrew, and then go John, Billy, Karen, sorry, and then keep going that way, so we'll start with John and start there. Keep it going that way so we can maintain Karen's there. All right, so first question we have is, 2 weeks from tonight, the town will hold a special town meeting, which is going to decide whether to construct the new senior center at the site of the Old Gate School. This is a project that's going to cost taxpayers over $12 million. So it's a two-part question. First is, how do you plan on voting on this article? And second of all, what's the reasoning behind your decision?
So should we be standing? For,
Yeah, feel comfortable.
All right. Here or better, I hope. So, a little louder, all right, I'm sorry. I support this, I'm going to be voting for the senior center, I support it. I'll tell you the reason why. I've always had this understanding that my children should be interacting more with folks in the community, that somehow this has become the modus operandi for so many folks that are a bit younger. And having a campus feel, having the ability, and my 8-year-old loves pickleball, to be able to interact and have the intergenerational connection, I think is critically important for us to become a community, for us to talk to each other and come around. The one thing I will tell you is that how we're going to also pay for it, hopefully in the future, is that I have a plan for rate relief and property tax relief that should, I hope, alleviate some financial concerns. I have a plan to cut CPC in half and then do a general override for 1 1/4, which is about $900,000 a year. The senior center is about $424,000 a year. You still have $500,000. So we can do major projects and still give rate relief and still have our ability to do other things such as help solve clean water, general maintenance. So we have to be thinking about things a bit differently. Thank you.
Thanks, John, next.
I'm definitely voting yes. For the past couple of years, I have been going to the senior center and doing some opening meetings and training myself to train seniors. I also helped alter some of the building structure. Some things I don't do and I disappear only because based on capacity and so on, if someone said, why are you there when it was so crowded? I wasn't there when the problem starts because I don't have to document it and put a complaint in. Are we overcrowded? Definitely. I don't even use the bathroom there to say they know it's not ADA compliant, most likely that if it was there, I had to put a complaint and it caused more problems. So instead what I did, I started getting more funds and grants. I started educating the community. I also started stepping forward. Sorry about that. I know you couldn't hear me. I started stepping forward. I went to Attleboro. I went to Taunton. Gatra, the busing program you have right here, I'm the vice chair of that. I got it involved to branch out more and bring more people, pick them up to the shops, the stores, to bring more life in the whole community. Because the senior center wasn't just doing things at the building. It was going to other churches and so on because they were overcrowded. They're a beautiful community. We also serve veterans and disabled people and caregivers. People don't know the center core that is. If you fix this center core, you'll get more funds and grants because you're doing community center things. And that's how towns and cities develop. This is what the state and federal government is looking for. This is what I need to get involved in and help you get motivated to get more of the ball rolling. In regards to taking your taxes, I cannot cut your taxes. What I can do to get these grants and so on for these projects and future projects, there'll be no more need to have a higher override because they'll match some of the money. And that's a huge thing because those are your pockets. I don't want to go in your pockets. I don't want you to go in mine. So I had to find something that would work. With all my training and expertise, I got this. So please let me help you get the money for all these projects. Thank you very much.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. So we have the town meeting 2 weeks from today about the senior center. The two-part question. First is how are you planning on voting, yes or no? And then second, what is your reasoning behind your decision?
I'm definitely voting yes. I've always been of the belief that we need to take care of people that can't take care of themselves, which are the kids and the seniors and the mentally challenged and the veterans and the physically challenged. In the 2017 census of Scituate, which was the latest I could find, there was 18,688 people. 1,700 of those, 2 years later, I was up at the town hall the other day, are veterans. As you all know, being a veteran, there comes some afterlife, depression, PTSD, mental illness. We need to do better for our veterans, our seniors, and have a place for them to call home. I think the sooner the better. Time is the #1 thing that you can't get back. And I think we all rushing around in today's life, speeding around with our crazy lives. Takes a lot of time to follow through on stuff. Takes a lot of commitment, a lot of consistency, a lot of drive, a lot of desire, a lot of hard work, and a lot of God. And things have to go right. Nothing's a quick fix in this world. There's not a lot of science projects going on. But if your heart is in the right place, and you show up for work every day, and you get something done, like since 2013, we've only done 22 miles of pipe, and that cost us $21 million in 6 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
I'm also in favor of the senior center. I will point out two things, however. One is the fact that there are significant problems right now with the site itself and how the building is being positioned. If my fellow citizens vote in favor of it, it will be up to the next Board of Selectmen to figure out how to best handle those challenges, because there are some challenges, but I don't think that's a reason to vote no. I think it's fixable, whatever the problems might be. If people vote no and we don't get this senior center, then I would be committed as the next selectman to work with the board to figure out how we use the Gates School for the senior center and town hall. As for my opponent, Mr. Goodrich's suggestion about CPC, first of all, people worked really hard in 2002 to bring CPC to town. So I can guarantee you that if it were to be proposed to cut it in half, it will have to go to town meeting. Town meeting will have to pass it, and then it will have to go to the ballot. That's the risk. The second part of that risk is that if people voted to cut it in half, that money goes back to the taxpayer, as it should. And it is very risky to think that people will, on one hand, vote to cut CPC, on the other hand, vote to an override. So, to me, that's kind of pie in the sky.
Thank you. So we're going to stay on topic a little bit and talk about voter turnout at town meetings, some things that were touched on a little bit earlier, especially when Jim Toomey was out there talking. So turnout at both town meeting and at town elections is traditionally rather low, and yet there seems to be a lot of people in town who are passionate about issues. You can see that just walking around the street. You can see that especially when you look online. How do you engage those people who are committed and interested in town issues, yet don't show up and participate in the process? How do you involve them in that process to make sure that their concerns are listened to? And that can obviously include things up to addressing our form of government. So we're going to start with John.
Part of the thing is, can you get them there? That's why I got Jack involved. There's other ways to get back and forth. You have other meetings where people can bus in and carpool together. The other part comes down to where we have what's called remote participation that I got brought into the town. That most people don't understand the technology behind that. That would mean that you could actually vote being home. You have to have a special password to get in the system, and you'd be monitored. You can vote on topics, you can hear what's going on. You don't have live network back and forth. But this is where technology has gone to. That is in the process, because we already tested that out with the Commission of Disabilities. It was originally designed for veterans and disabled people, so if they can't make the meetings for quorum, they do it that way. So it's a simple fix. Some people don't like it. Other people want to have what's called a representation, where it'd be like maybe for a certain area, one person represents the whole area. That doesn't work. I want my voice to count, and I want to hear from you. The question was, how do you get other people involved? The thing is, you ask them, do you need a ride? What are you talking about? Is this at the meeting now? Let them know, and that will stop them up. If what they're interested in is being discussed, you let them know that you want to know about this, it's at this meeting, this is the one you should go to. Because not everything is there, and it gets boring sometimes. And that's what people worry about, saying it's boring and the meeting starts so late and it lasts up to midnight. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Really?
Could you ask a question, please? Sorry.
Absolutely. So how do you get everyone who is interested and involved in town issues involved in the political process?
I think the information needs to be more readily available online. Maybe also some community meetings more often than just the annual town meeting. Like I said, everybody's busy. Like, for instance, I'll tell you a quick little story. I went to the town meeting the other night to oppose something. At 11:30 at night, there was only like probably 140 people left there. It was 11:30 at night. Yeah, I was exhausted. I missed something. And this is what I'm doing every day, full-time, studying as hard as I can. Trying my hardest to be the best candidate and represent you the best I possibly can. And have all the information, and I do. Some of it I want to stay positive tonight, so I don't want to touch on it. But there's a lot of stuff that needs fixing around here. And I was the youngest in my family. I had to watch everything, and I watched everything in the town, and now I'm watching everything still. And they tell you to pay attention, and they tell you to listen in school when you're a kid, and then you get to be an adult, you're paying attention, and you listen, and you speak up, and then you're trouble, you know? So if I'm trouble, I'll be trouble, but I'm not going to get walked on. And thank you, Maria. Yeah, there's so many things I could really touch on. I mean, I'm hearing stories every day about different families getting hurt in some way or another. And I don't want to hurt anyone, and I don't want to see anyone get hurt. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Well, first of all, if we want to change how town meeting runs, we need a charter review. We haven't had one in quite a few years, so it's time for that. And that will be the proper place for discussion as to what we might want to do. We might want to keep it the way it is. We might want to change the representative town government. It's kind of up in the air, but that committee would be elected and report to the town, and then the town would have to vote on any charter changes. As for attracting people to the meeting, my experience is people show up when they care about something, and then they leave. And that's what we've got right now. So it's unfortunate, but those of us who stay through the second night, you know, we're there because we care. And frankly, I would rather have people who care about something than people who don't know, you know, what we're talking about, for example, on the budget. So I think the interested people go.
Excellent. Next question is go. Yeah, sorry.
I love this question. You cannot confuse absence with apathy, and you cannot confuse absence with ignorance. 95% of the folks in Scituate did not attend town meeting. They voted with their feet because they did not think it was a productive or even informative use of their time. I want to change town government, and yes, you'd have to do a charter review. Everyone else has talked about bringing people to town meeting. I want to bring town meeting to the people, and I'm open to different ideas of doing that. We've talked about representative form. I want to keep the conversation, or having an online system for folks to be there. When I hear that there's a firefighter on a call and they can't go to town meeting, do I think that person doesn't care? If someone is home with 2 sick kids with the stomach bug, does their voice not matter? We have to find ways to get those folks and those voices to matter. And we can't be shaming people to do it. That's not the right way. Shame on us for not trying to get those voices heard. Thank you.
So we're going to start next with the ability. We'll just jump to Karen. Seems to still not be at the table back in. Cool. So we're going to stick with actually the little turnout on a specific issue at town meeting. So the last one we had earlier this month, the citizen petition that was seeking to impose a moratorium on many of the construction projects in town. It failed by 128 to 122, which are both very low numbers and also very close to each other. So given that close response, this issue is still clearly on a lot of people's minds, as has come up earlier. So how do you think the best way as selectmen is, or what do you think the best way as a selectman is to address the water issue in town?
The water issue?
He's not here, he left. I'm alone about it.
No, wait, no, we're
There he
sorry.
is, okay.
So this petition was in response to the water availability. This is a petition.
Oh, that petition?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the building moratorium.
You confused me a little bit. Do you mind if I said, can you hear me? All right, I'll stand. Low turnout is a problem whether it's at the voting booth or whether it's at town meeting. And as I said before, people stay for town meeting and they stay if they're interested in something. And when they're not, they leave. And there have been candidates running for centuries and they can lose by 1 vote. So I don't think it's the margin of the vote. I think it's the people who are still there. And frankly, I think those are the people who care enough to educate themselves about what is on the warrant.
Okay. And, yeah, we'll just skip that down. We'll go that last instead, really.
Stay seated. You want to stay seated? We can sit.
If they don't mind.
I'll try and be loud. So, how to address and fix the water problem?
Yes.
I think was the question.
Yes.
I'll answer that question. So, for me, a lot of it is number one on the moratorium. I understand the reasoning behind it, and I can sympathize with what was trying to be accomplished. Going forward, we have to look long-term. There's about 50 miles of AC pipes or asbestos concrete pipes. Again, we can't be ignoring the problem, putting a bag over the problem for trying to fix all these miles and miles and miles of pipes. To do that, there's 2 ways to try and address that problem. One, look to the state for either a state funding, and there's other towns that are there, towns such as Stoughton and Hanover and Swansea that all have difficult issues and problems. Working with those other communities, we can try to see if there's some additional funding from the state level. On the local level, when I talked about that plan for that general override, a plan a week ago, all of my opponents talked about cutting CPC in half. That funding for a clean water trust or some other way of funding, I believe, is an avenue for us to have that long-term plan moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. John?
Okay, clarify. When it came to CPC, my statement was exponentially, we're killing it because we're putting too much on them, too many projects, and they're being pulled, and the money's not going to be there in the long run. We need some kind of government to going on. That's what I meant by that. Secondly, when it comes to the water, okay, hopefully this artwork will be in the town hall. This myself. This right here is a picture of the pipe. Okay, and I do a drawing. This is how clogged they looked. It's sedimentation. It's from 1934. It's in a cross pipe. This is what the pipes, new pipes are going in. The thing is, it comes in several folds. There's 2 things. There's 2 materials here. Another area, that's like a type of iron, and a concrete inside. But this right now is uniformed, gauged in between and so on. The difference is this lasted from 1934 still. prior. It was still running water until you disturbed the system, and that's why you have what's called pigging, which is not really pigging anymore, which is sort of like if you had a clogged artery, they would put a stent in there and expand it. They don't do that. They put like a slushy brine solution, and that's salt water, and they flush it out. And it's actually not harmful to people. But the problem is when they clean this section out and flush it out, when they reopen it up, the other pipe all of a sudden has water pressure addressed to it. And, you know, if this area right here is lower like this, and they turn the pressure on to fill up, you start blasting this side right here, and that mixes. So you have to really work with the water department. Like they say, open the spigot, let them on your property, open it. We're going to have it for a couple of years. We don't have the millions of dollars all the time to get it done in 1 year. That's the truth. I'm not going to lie to you. They're working on it. They'll get it done. The way I think, it might take, 8 years, realistically. And that's it. Okay. I don't understand the color codes right, but I think I'm done. Thank you very much.
Could you ask a question again, please, sir?
Absolutely. So we were talking about the water issue in town. Is the town, how to best address the water issue in town?
Which issue?
About the buildings and groundwater.
The there are two issues in town, actually, I'd like to speak about. First is the water shortage issue, which I believe we could curb by reevaluating the Conservation Preservation Act of 2002. I believe that act has now counteracted itself. It was originally in place for ball fields and athletic fields. Was the main reason. There were actually 5 reasons. The major reason was for the fields. Now we're taking out $6 million out of that fund and taking a loan out for $6 more million for the athletic fields. I don't agree with taking out loans to do stuff we don't have the money for right now. I don't agree with raising the taxes. We're going to have to vote on Proposition 2.5 if we are going to approve the new senior center. So that's going to be an average of $150 the first year and $2,250 over the lifetime of the $12 million loan. There's a lot of stuff going on. I know it's pretty overwhelming. Like I said, that's the water shortage. Now the brown water, like I said, I've been dealing with it, you know, bathing with it as a baby and now drinking it every day. I ran out of bottled water just today and I was drinking tap water. And I always give my parents a hard time when there's no bottled water or Brita. But, you know, growing up, I used to be, you know, drinking my mom's tab instead of the water here. So I want it to change, and it has to change before we become the next Flint, Michigan. Thank you.
Well, Karen, I think I misphrased the question, so I want to give you another minute to do the thing.
Thank you. I totally was focused on the issue of turnout, and I missed the segue to water. Clearly, brown water is not acceptable, but the town is investing a lot of money, about $33 million at this point, in infrastructure and trying to improve the water. I would like to say to my fellow citizens, I don't have brown water. We get slightly green water sometimes, but I think that if you have a chronic brown water problem, you should not have to pay your water bill. I don't think you should have to pay for brown water. Now, if it's once in a while, these things happen. But if it's chronic for someone, I just don't think that's right. Thank you for letting me.
Of course, sorry for that. Staying on the topic of aging infrastructure for a minute. So aging infrastructure along with rising oceans, and then aging infrastructure in parts of town and rising oceans are leaving residents susceptible to coastal flooding, property damage, and often threats to their personal safety. What's the best way for the town to address this problem long term? And should the town consider retreating from flood impacted areas? So we started with Karen last time, so start again this time.
So, to me, what I've learned walking around and talking to folks over in Hummerock, talking to some civil engineers, there's not a one-size-fits-all. I hear this, like, should we retreat, should we not retreat? Every area of the town is different. There's dredging happening out in Hummerock. They're going to have a different solution and answer than what might be happening in Minot or even Sand Hills if there's an issue. So, should we retreat? Every area, you have to look at every certain area differently. to have the kind of a one-size-fits-all approach, I think is the wrong way to think about it. And really getting in touch with some of our, and there are some amazing civil engineers and folks that are not only in the area, but even in town. So for me, it's making sure that we don't become wed to just one solution.
John?
Last town meeting, the town voted on was called a transition plan. The last transition plan was done in 1995. The founders of the transition plan, one are the Commission on Disabilities, which is what I made sure I was up to date and keyed on, both technology and infrastructure. And what we do is we evaluate buildings and infrastructure that way, but also personnel. When I hear infrastructure, people think it's just the building itself. I'm also one of the people that when there's an emergency evacuation, I have say, because I've been trained and certified in that. So talking about backup, pull away, there are plans in place. Funds and grants to make a better evacuation plan, by all means. I've been dealing with Plymouth, because with GATRA, there's transportation right there. So I've been doing this for 5 years. Transition plan, I'm trained and certified to educate and teach people how to do it. This is what we need. So I'm primed and ready for this. Having me on the top to trickle down, back and forth, to make sure people are in sync, and work with them and say, what was going on, what do you think that? And say, oh yeah, this is working, you're right. The next phase, we can do this, or you find the way it is. I have the training to do this, and the abilities to do it. Please let me help you. Please let us get on the right track so money isn't wasted. And let me get the grants for you. This is the prime time for me to step up and help everybody out here. Thank you.
Can I get the question again? I'm sorry.
All right, sure. The question was, what is the best way for the town to address the issues of coastal flooding, and should the town consider retreating from flood-impacted areas?
I grew up down Sand Hills, and I don't think we should be retreating. I think we should save all the houses that we can. I think it was just inevitable that a lot of them were going to go. Love riding around, looking at the beaches. It's what makes our town so special. The harbor especially, love it. And no, I mean that's what we have flood insurance for. So you you buy your own peril down there. You know, it's kind of kind of ties into really what we haven't really talked much about, but the CPA Act of 2002. 39 out of the 50 states have regulations. We don't have them. We're among the worst, along with Montana. Yeah, Montana. The wild, wild west, they quoted in Patriot Ledger article last weekend. Also, one thing I want to say was John Dandy was quoted in August 14th, 2018 in the Patriot Ledger article saying that manganese combined with the metal in the pipes was a phenomenon. Phenomena means an occurrence, a fact. Yes, we believe it happened. It is an occurrence. It's a fact. We have brown water. It's getting worse. We need to do something about it. Ice pigging costs $80,000 a treatment. And it's salt mixed in with ice and water. That's all it is. That's all it is. Salt mixed in with ice and water for $80,000 a treatment. That's just one small street. We got 20,000 residents, countless homeowners, gallons of brown water flowing every day, getting worse. Go look in the bathroom in here.
All right, great. Karen, could you just remind everybody if you have any questions about coastal flooding and how to address yourself over there?
I got it. First of all, the good news is that there are about $19 million worth of seawall projects currently on the books to fix the damage that has been done to our foreshore, and it would be FEMA money. The town just voted at November town meeting to put in $4.5 million of that. That's required. We have to put in 25%. So that's a short-term thing, which is a good thing. Long-term, having been around for a long time, Egypt Beach, there used to be house after house after house after house. They're all gone. I believe most of them were bought out with FEMA money. I think when you look at Peggotty Beach, you have a similar thing. You can look and you can see there's huge spaces between some of the houses, and they were bought by FEMA. And, you know, there will be some point where homeowners decide they can't afford it. And as much as I love the ocean, God love people who live right on it, because it's, you know, it's a problem. It's expensive and it can be dangerous. But I think there are a combination of things, including we need to look to some other cities and towns as to what they're doing. I mean, they've got a real problem in Miami, for example. So, you know, there may be some solutions that are out there that we can continue to pursue. But for the time being, let's fix what we've got and let's hope. And I have to thank the Coastal Coalition. They work hard with the planning department to lower the insurance rates by getting discounts. And they've done a good job on it, and I would encourage them to keep working on that, because we haven't reached the limit on that.
Thanks. So next question is going to start with John. So you guys should kind of touch on Dick, Karen. So between things like police crime task force and harbor masters working together, there are ways that Scituate collaborates with other towns in the area. What are some other ways that you think the town and the Board of Selectmen in particular can learn from other communities in the area and work with them to fix communal problems?
That's a tough question. I went to the meeting in North Scituate, and they were talking about the future of a sewer treatment, a sewer pipe. But that's still 5-7 years down the plan, but they fired up the community, and they took it pretty bad. So in regards to merging things together, when I hear police, I usually hear like there's some kind of crime issue going on back and forth, and you want a task force to prevent issues of crime. So how do we do that? We could focus on things of regards to the schools right now. People taking hostage in schools. Do they have a task force for that? Are they training? I know every once in a while they go to the gate school and they have the police dogs intertwined back and forth other departments. I also know that when it comes to emergency evacuation, they have to work together, because these systems, the cell phones, they go out. No power. Also, the towers go down. And when it came to the enhanced 911, I was all for that to get it going and putting the network in, where I have a questionnaire for everything what you need. Service animal, to your medication, to who your family member's going to be. So it interacts with other police departments. When your family member can't get a hold of you, they call one police department, and they go to the other police department, and they find out for you. That's one aspect of the thing, communication, to find someone when the disaster happens. I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
I think the communities really need to work together for our kids. It's a different world than when we were growing up. There's a lot of freaks, a lot of weirdos out there, and you've got to be careful. And there's a lot of drugs out there. And we need the police and the communities to come together to keep track of our kids and the drugs and the illegal activity going on everywhere. Unfortunately, it is going on. And this, unfortunately, there are a lot of bad people out there who not just want to do you harm, they just want to do other people harm. So I think we really, really need to be vigilant on watching our neighbors, see something, say something, fires, just really kind of take care of each other in the community, and you know, kind of be old school that way. And that was one thing I really loved about Scituate. I would go over to Mr. or Mrs. Lazarovich's house or the Riddle's house, and I'd get some sugar or some milk if we didn't have it. And community was that. And I think that it's good to look out for each other. And you know, some people can't do it. Some people are physically or mentally incapable of looking after themselves, and you need to help them. Thank you.
One very good example of a way we can work together is the North Scituate Cohasset Hull sewer potential. That is clearly a really good idea if we can pull it off. In addition, we have one program that's been very successful working with other towns, and that's South Shore Votech. That's a really good example of working with other towns and having a facility. And I will say, on their behalf, they've applied 5 times to MSBA for, to do a project at the school. They keep getting turned down. You know why? They keep the school in such good condition. It's amazing. And that school is probably the age of Wampatuck and Hatherley. So I look to them as a very good example. I know our selectmen do go to MMA, Mass Municipal Association meetings, to hear best practices from other towns. I know our town administrator is very well connected from the top to the bottom in terms of state and other administrators. So that's very valuable to have someone like that. And finally, I will say that there are such things that we participate in regional buying compacts to try to get better prices on things that all towns need. So I think we do it. I would look to the future for more, but we are in New England and we are independent towns, aren't we?
Thanks, Karen.
Data integration, probably one of the most fundamental ways for us to understand what's happening. Within the town, I assume that the police would know exactly how long it takes to get to your house from here to there. Now, regionally, you can do things like that as well, and having data and that sort of integration happening across the board for fiscal issues, as well as things like best practices. We don't have to just look at New England. If you were in North Carolina, you could say, Alexa, tell Scituate Water Department I have brown water. The code's not hard. It's about 80. I've looked at it. It's not that difficult to have that data integration for you to be able to do that. They do that in Nevada and Colorado and out in California. Data integration for the opioid crisis. What are other surrounding towns? Asking the right questions. How many folks, how many people do we have affected today? How many deaths did we have last year? What's our community goal next year? What's Plymouth County's goal next year to solve this problem? Transparency reform. What are other cities and towns doing about transparency reform? I have pledged that every one of my emails, if I'm elected selectman, will be what's called pre-disclosure. You don't have to ask for it. Just put it right up, and you can get it. If there's information and data that you have a right to have, because all of that information is yours as the taxpayer, you should be able to get it without asking. There's amazing things on a regional and national scale that we can tap into to make things a lot better. But having that data across the boards and people talking and asking the right questions, that's how we get there.
Thank you. Next question is and Rebecca, if you want to answer this one too, feel free. You don't have to, but it's up to you. So as we've talked about a little bit tonight, the town is working on improving business districts in both Greenbush and in North Scituate. But at the same time, numerous storefronts down in Front Street in the Harbor, probably the most busy business district in the town, are sitting vacant. So as town officials, how can government work to attract more businesses into town and then also get them to stay? We'll start with Billy.
Great question. Thank you. The business. So I kind of got dragged into this whole thing, and I'm glad I did. So I can help make change around here and help to build a better business infrastructure for the town so we can lower taxes. It is possible, ladies and gentlemen, to lower taxes in today's day and age. As you see, we have an $80 million budget along with a $41 million school budget, and that doesn't include overtime and other things. With $120 million, we're not able to do our everyday chores around town, like fix the sewer systems down Sand Hills. We don't have businesses on 3A like Cohasset has. We've always denied that prospect. And now we're tying in the John Drew Company with 200 sewer units when we don't have the water. And we're canceling all these projects lately, and because we have already lined the pockets, and John Drew's all set to come in. So we're pushing that, and we're cutting funding on other things. And we didn't get the soccer field behind Wampatuck. That $200,000 in that money that was going to the soccer field, the selectmen are using it for something else. There's other things that are going on that you have to follow the money. The $9 million that they cut from the senior center is going to the John Drew tie-in. To tie in all these huge developers for all these hundreds of millions of dollars worth of things and all these hundreds of units is killing this town. The CPA has to be reversed and we have to take the town back. Thank you.
Rebecca, do you want to go? You want to go? You're good? Okay. Karen.
Well, I think it depends on which area of town you're talking about in terms of business. Greenbush is looking pretty bright, I think. I know a lot of people don't like the size of those apartments, but I think it's looking better down there. I think North Scituate has an entirely different problem, and that is the issue of sewers. And until that is solved, it's going to look the way it looks right now. On the other hand, I will say that I've got this idea of putting in a hotline at Town Hall, and they're going to kill me up there, but little things matter. The little things matter hotline, so that you can call in if you see the fire hydrant that has had a bag on it for 2 years. If you see something that's broken, report it to Town Hall. And I used to work for Boss, and every Tuesday we'd have a meeting, and we'd have a list. We'd all go out of the meeting with a list. And the next week you had to have an answer for everything on that list. Not that you could get it all done, but that you had to be working on it, and you had to have an explanation. And I would like to see something like that, whether it's a hotline or whether it's something that is online, but somewhere for people to feel their issue is being addressed and that they're going to get the answer back and it doesn't go into a black hole. As for the harbor, clearly there are empty storefronts. One thing I will say, I read a story in the New York Times about they have a storefront problem there too. It's all over the country. What they do is they offer landlords who have an empty space a very small amount of money, and then the landlord allows people to go in and put artwork on the windows and in the windows. So, I mean, it's not an answer to business, but it's certainly an answer to short-term making something look better. So I think we can do a lot to make this town look better. The big projects, they're going to take time, they take permitting, they take money, but I think we can do a lot in the short term.
So, again, it comes back to listening. And I think having some sort of an economic ombudsman dedicated solely to that job of listening to the business community would be very helpful as that one point of contact. I love the idea of and support the efforts to have a 311 system or an email system to do that. But there are some things we could do. Right? We could have Scituate cable access, short-term, we're talking short-term fixes for places like North Scituate, just to fix up. It actually doesn't need to look like that. We could rent out that space, that would be a wonderful studio for 3 months, and clean it up and have the town rent that, $1,600 a month, and put a short-term fix there. But we could also do things like fix the fire hydrant, and make sure that we're responding to the different needs that were there. We can also attract business by looking for pop-up stores, right? And making sure that those certain pop-up stores are coming in and have that outreach, that ombudsman or the board could look to do that. But again, to me, I just want to make sure that all this comes back to what we call a master plan for how we do economic development. For me, it's difficult when I take my kids in North Scituate to the playground that one of the closest businesses is a vape shop. And I have to explain to them what that is. So we have to think a bit bigger and make sure that we're doing the plan. And I think that planning that we're going to be doing will be there, and we can get there. But again, I want to be able to make sure that we're listening to those business owners.
John.
Okay, this question has plagued me a lot because my father passed away recently. We had an auto garage. When I was 14 years old, with the gas wars going on, a gas crisis, So basically, I cannot be on the jury for a crime because they asked a question. If you're robbed, how do you feel? Well, my father got shot and almost killed. So on my hat goes for the small shop guy. Now, how do we get the money back and forth? There's advertising, you take little things, you have the Chamber of Commerce. But what can we do different on looking at the town? Now, two things were mentioned here. The short thing was the fire hydrant. Well, thank God it didn't leak, like in the movies, because we have flow valves that cut off so it wouldn't waste more water. So, about the shops, we can do something really unique and far out, because with engineering and structures, you try to find problems. Now, what can we do that's different? Well, we have transportation out Gatra. We have shops. We have First Friday, but that's only for Front Street. But what if we did something different? What if we put speed bumps in a certain point? And come winter time, we want to bring more business. We do something unique that no other city or town did, but except New York. We actually use the curbs where they are, cover the manhole, freeze that little section of the street so the cars can go to the parking lot, cut back and go up the street back and forth. There's a roadway. A small little ice arena, something unique, winter wonderland anytime we want for a short period of time, and that will put us on the map. It sounds far-fetched, but that's something new and different. People look at things, what can you do different? We have winters. People usually don't shop. People go to the malls. You want them at the small shops? Get them there. You want them to walk around? Make it so the car can't go straight through. I don't understand your color code, but I think at the red light, so I have to sit down. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Next question we're going to start with Connolly, right? So recently, the Scituate Public Schools submitted statements of intent to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for Cushing and Hadley schools. School officials hope to consolidate the two schools and build one new school. So the question is, do you support this project? And do you think this is the best course of action to address the schools, plural schools, infrastructure needs?
I do not support that plan. We invested money in Wampatuck School a few years ago, took out a little bit of debt, and worked with the MSBA to get reimbursed. And they're now not talking at all about closing Wampatuck School. The MSBA does have a program called Accelerated Repairs. I think we should apply for that program. First of all, because I think it's a disgrace if we have children in these schools in Hatterley and Cushing that have windows falling in and roofs leaking, et cetera, et cetera. We cannot leave children in those schools for the next 5 years while the town applies to build a new elementary school. I think we can fix at least Hatherley School, maybe add on to it, but for a lot less money. There was an option too to fix the schools and add on to one of them. And I think that's the one we should be pursuing. I don't think we should tear down those schools.
Thanks, Andrew.
My answer is no, I don't support that plan, and I think we're in a lot of agreement on why. You go to Hatherley, you go in the back, you go to the playground. I've dreamt of, like, in the middle of the night going just to fix some of those windows, because I can't believe they've been like that for so long, and repaint them. And you look at them and you say, why is this taking so long? And then part of it, you keep digging and digging, you say, okay, wait, you look at that one property, or even at Wampatuck, and you realize the DPW is responsible for one part of it. The school committee is part of this part of the building. And then over here, the facilities manager is doing that. And of course, nothing's going to get done. I agree that I think accelerating maintenance and accelerating repairs is necessary before we start tearing down.
Thanks. John?
I agree with them so far. It comes down to this. They have to have a charter review and change things. This is a prime example. When it comes down to the school, you're going to realize who's in charge of the building. In most places where it's most cost-effective and so on, it's the DPW. They need the snow, the maintenance, they're in charge of the maintenance crew back and forth. When it comes to the schools, let's be honest, if it comes down to you want a teacher or you want a janitor or someone who does maintenance, we mostly go for the teacher. So that's a no-brainer. We gotta change the way we think and do things. And that's the change in the charter that we have to do. And that's the best way of doing it, is give, like most town cities have, DBW in charge of the maintenance. And so the personnel and the teachers, they're in charge, the school committee in charge of, and the DPW is in charge of the building. That's a no-brainer. They do the other buildings, why are they different? Everybody thinks when you pay a bill, that even though it's for the school, it goes to the town. Doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I was a Wampatuck winner. I don't know how many Wampatuck winners we got out there. I believe that the shell of the building is fine. I don't believe we should be building anything new until we get things right around here with the money. We're taking out loans to build fields and senior centers now instead of using the CPA to do that. The CPA was originally for that, and now we've pillaged the CPA and the land around here so much so that there's no money left coming out of the CPA, and they want to raise the taxes on the CPA. So the tax, your property tax, take that, and then take 3% of your property tax, not from your property tax, but add it on to your property tax. And then add 1.5%. So that's 4.5% of your property tax. They're trying to raise that. That's already what you're giving to the CPA every year since 2002. And these developers say that there's significant public benefit. Ask yourself, what has been your significant public benefit? Ask yourself, have you benefited, and how so? Ask yourself, where is my tax money going? $121 million, and that's on the low side of what we're spending around here. And they haven't paved they don't clean the beaches anymore. I could go on and on about the things that they don't do. I just want to tell you what I can do. I can get the things better around here for the taxes. That's crazy. That's crazy that everyone's getting taxed out of town. The people who built this town are getting taxed out of town, just like the people in Southie. This is insane. All the older folks, they got to stay at Wheeler Park. I was up there the other day, and Wheeler Park had no TVs working, and there were 12-inch box TVs, and it said out of order on it. I asked Dottie McCarthy how long that was going on. She told me 2 years. I said, people come over here and watch it? She said they used to. They'd come over and put their laundry in and sit and watch the program and communicate.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to go over. I didn't see you, Maria. Apologize.
So we're going to start next time with Andrew, right? Cool. So, sort of saying on a similar topic, whenever new buildings are talked about in town, the subsequent question is always, how do we make sure that we are maintaining these so that we don't have to do this again sooner than we need to? So John touched on it a little bit in his last answer, but I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to respond. So how do you make sure that the assets we do have as a town are taken care of in the most efficient way?
All right, so again, going back to the plan I talked about earlier about cutting CPC in half, and then a general override for 1 1/4. Again, so your effective tax rate still goes down. You won't be buying a big screen TV, but your rate still goes down. That's $900,000 a year. I'm very concerned about debt acceleration. So if we're accelerating the payoff on the debt, we'll be able to then, it's like paying off your credit card faster to make sure that we can bring down the debt. With that, there has to be money set aside for maintenance. That maintenance on those buildings and giving the right resources is what's going to be able for us to do that. And if we can do that by actually getting more resources and lowering taxes, to me, that's a win-win for us moving forward.
Thanks, John.
I agree partially with Andrew. But when it comes down to materials, what materials do we get? You get the ones that aren't going to rot and mold and so on, the materials that can place things and have a storage center for it. Things that can be left outside because it can be rain and tempered, have them out there, doesn't matter. And you place them as they go. You have to think sort of like if you lived in a condominium. Well now, if something happens at this school, This school over here, you're gonna share the bill with them. We're always sharing the bill. How do we keep it separate? We invest in the maintenance. Like I said before, Department of Public Works, let them be in charge. They master it. They have little fields where they have storage of things back and forth. You'd have to build a building for like maybe carpets or so on, or put, you know, fiscal year ends June 30th. Make sure that the money goes for the raw materials. Then come summertime, when school's done, you hit the schools, start tiling the roads, you do what has to be done then. You already have it in place when you have a little bit of overflow, because some projects fell, like Mr. Tippett said, and the money's sitting there, you gotta throw it somewhere, put it in your stock, or put it back, take a balloon payment down, but use it faster that way. Thank you.
Bill?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. So the question was, how do you ensure that the current assets the town owns are maintained properly?
That all has to do with accountability. Accountability was the number one thing that I learned throughout my life. I had to be accountable to 20 guys on a hockey team every time I took the ice. Are we holding the people around here accountable up at the town hall? I know we're not, and I know we could be. They cut the trees right to the street on the Toll Brothers project. There was supposed to be a 30-foot barrier of trees along Tilden Road, especially because it's a historic road. Mrs. Pipes will tell you that. Along Hadley Road as well. And up Turner. And Ronnie's house. I forget the name of that street. But my friend Ronnie lives there. We got one building inspector. It's like a part-time thing for these guys up at the town hall. But yet this CPA Act is selling town land to the biggest development company in the country, probably the world, biggest house builders in the world, Toll Brothers, coming down here, building on military dump sites that were never approved. It could never be cleaned up. It was too expensive for anyone around here. But now William Warrenberger is the lawyer to know around here who is pushing through, quote unquote, he told me, anything he wants with the Conservation Committee. That's a fact. Quote me on it. Put me in the paper. William Warrenberger is the one ruining this town with developers. Thank you.
Karen?
Well, I guess what I would like to see is, much as we have a capital budget, that I don't know that many of you probably have gone through the whole thing. It's a rolling 5-year budget. It's pages and pages. It's actually like hundreds of pages long. I would like to see a similar sort of a plan for all of our buildings, listed building by building by building, with what issues are to be able to bring them up to speed, to maintain them, and what kind of money is associated with maintaining or improving each building. Because I think once you have that sort of a plan that you can look at, you can start to, again, check things off. Is this being done? Is this being done? And to take a look, are we actually spending enough money on maintenance? That's what I would do.
Cool. Excellent. So the next 3 questions are going to be just kind of single word answers rather than explanation ones, so we're going to be quick with that. So the first one is, I would like each of you, starting with John, to list your top 3 priorities that you would address first if you were elected selectman.
My top priorities, I've been talking about maintenance. That's definitely the transition plan. Everything is outlined there. I can make it, I can write it, I can endorse it, I can get it going and get grants. That's one thing. I cannot bring down taxes. I'm not going to lie to you. What I can do is get the grants so they don't hit you harder with the projects going on. We have to have development. Schools, the biggest thing back and forth. I am an advocate for children, veterans, and disabled people. I am overlap with these things in every aspect. I help put the transportation system in. That gets more funding and grants because You're adding to the bucket where the bucket gets full, and, okay, now you qualify for all these grants, I can do it for you. Third thing, infrastructure. I've interacted with a lot of people, and some of them got upset, and they challenged me as to what they were saying. And I listened to them. And I asked them to explain to me, what do you mean by that? And they would tell me. I said, oh, I can see why you see that point. Okay? Now, if you apply for this right here, that gives you this and 3 other options, so you're not pigeonholed into one thing if this fails. And they've done that. They've got things for the beaches, they've got things for boardwalks, they've got roads, they've got lights. So I want to thank you, and I hope I have your support.
All right. Three things, and let's try and keep a little bit shorter that one, so we're running out of time.
Can you repeat it, please?
Sure, the top 3 priorities of your life as selectman. In 5 words or less for each one.
5 words or less?
For each one, let's try that.
We just spoke for 5 minutes.
Not to.
So is it 5 minutes or 5 words?
Well, we're small short answers, so you're running out of time.
Okay. Just give me a hard time. Gotta have fun, right? This has been fun, and I want to say thank you for all the respect you showed me tonight. Thank you. The 3 most important things, the brown water, number 1. Number 2, the Gates School. No. The brown water, number 1. Number 2, the CPA Act of 2002 needs to be reversed. And number 3, the senior center.
Cool. Karen.
Water, sewer, senior center, and changing the direction of the school committee on the issue of a new building.
Andrew.
Water infrastructure, keeping Scituate affordable, and bringing more voices to the conversation.
Cool. Starting with Billy, next one. This is going to be 1-word answers. The past 5 years, how many town meetings have you attended?
3.
Cool. Karen.
23.
Andrew.
2.
And John.
12.
Cool. So now we start with Billy, and last one, start with Karen, this one.
How can you go to 25 annual town meetings in how many years?
5
years was the number.
And she said she went to 25?
5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
5 years.
Oh, 5.
That's what I'm talking about.
10, yeah.
10.
10.
10, 23.
23.
We have town meeting, we have special town meeting,
Yep.
some years we
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
both.
multiple, yeah, like this year
Yeah.
we're probably at 3.
I actually counted it up.
I did a lot of hours spent there. And the last question before we go to closing statements, again, 1-word answer. In the past 12 months, how many selectmen meetings have you attended? We're going to start with Karen.
Probably 7.
Andrew?
2.
John?
2 or 3.
Cool. Billy?
7.
Cool. Excellent. So now we're going to move on to closing statements because we're supposed to wrap up at 9. That gives us about a couple minutes for each person. So those are going to be 3-minute closing statements, as we said at the beginning. We're going the opposite order that we started, so we're going to start with Billy and work this way.
All right. So this was something I've always thought about when before I got in trouble as a 17-year-old kid where I was framed by the police. I had dreams of being the President of the United States, going to Harvard University, playing for the Bruins, and then being President of the United States. That's what I wanted. Watching Ronald Reagan on TV. It was awesome. Growing up in Scituate, it was awesome. I played for the Seahawks. I played Little League here. I played Pop Warner. I was a tennis player at the yacht club. I was a terrible swimmer. I never got more than 3rd place, and there was only 4 guys. But I did everything around here. I went to the beaches, I fished, I water skied, I did it all. I had a great life. And sometimes life will kick you down, and you just got to get back up. And I think as a town, that's what's going on right now. There's a low morale. I want to get some fresh blood in there. I think I'm the best. I know I'm the best candidate for the job. Nothing personal. I think they all are great people. I've gotten to know John and Andrew. Me and John have actually hung out a couple times, and Andrew and I have bumped into each other a couple times, and it's been really great getting to know these guys, and it's been really great doing this here tonight. Unfortunately, you know, I felt like I was dragged into this, and I think it's the right path I'm on, and I'm proud to be on this path that God has put me on. And just give me a chance. I can do some very special things, and I know I can, and I will. And thank you.
John.
I want to thank you all for coming in your time. It was a beautiful show of support. It comes down to this. I actually do need your help to help the town. And I actually can help the town, and I've been making changes and going out and doing things. And you can ask all the other departments, I interacted with them. And I made sure it was done right the first time. They may not have liked the answer I've given them, but it was a truthful, honest one. I've helped conservation, I've helped planning board, I've helped council of aging, I've helped them all. And when there was something that couldn't be done, I joined committees, even other town and state, so we got the benefits we needed to open the doors. I have done all the most training and certifications to get these grants that we need to move forward and to maintain what we have. When it comes to schools development and so on, I personally went out and inspected them for the park department with Ann, who was Tony's wife, in regards to the selectmen. We went even in the rain, because time was sensitive. I looked at the parks, the fields, and how to get the grants, the money, and educated her how to do it. And we had fun. It actually is very easy to learn to do things the right way, and you can see a change. You don't just look at one building. Look at the building in the neighborhood it's in. And that's the big key. I don't look at just one building, one tiny project. I look at the whole community it's within. Thank you very much, and I'll have your vote.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. It was after 12 days of brown water. My 3-year-old son came downstairs, and we thought he ate a brownie or like a cookie, and we said, "Will, what did you do?" He said, "I had some water." I was like, "What?" His face just covered in brown. So that was it. My wife and I went out, we got those no more brown water signs. We put them up around town, and we did it to cause a conversation. We wanted people talking about it. We wanted people talking and highlighting the issue so it won't be forgotten. I'm so thrilled that we're all talking about this issue today, so we can address it and move forward. More than anything, the folks up here are not my competitors, they're neighbors. And we're talking about listening to neighbors, and I've loved some of the ideas that I've heard tonight. To the neighbors in Cedar Point that I've talked to, I've heard you about the gravity sewer issue. To the neighbors on 4th Ave who want that sign fixed, I hear you. On Irving Road who want to fix that street light, I hear you. To everybody at Wheeler Park who've talked to me about the conditions there and the brown water, I hear you. In Minot, brown water, I hear you. South Shore Recovery, people who want a pathway for a new job, I hear you. To the folks in the harbor business who are concerned about parking and parking issues, I hear you. And I want to work for you. I'm asking for your vote as a neighbor, as a friend, and someone who's committed to doing the right thing to move and make sure that we can do better. Not I can do better, we can do better. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Karen.
Well, I feel compelled to defend CPC a little bit tonight. It's taken a bit of a bashing, but CPC has been very valuable for this town. The town has bought, with town meeting approval, 400 acres of open space, mostly in the West End. But we recently bought 5 acres of land on First Cliff. That is a valuable thing. You look at this hall we're in. This was renovated using CPC funds, thanks to the taxpayers of this town. There are many things that we have done that we could not have done had it not been for CPC, especially taxpayers. The fields. The field project is being done with CPC money at no cost, additional taxes to the taxpayer. I think it was a really good thing to do. We now can take the entire issue of the high school fields off the table, and we will be able to pay that bond off in a couple of years should we so desire. I am not against reducing it. Duxbury reduced their CPC a few years ago. It's doable, but again, it's going to have to go to town meeting and it's going to have to go to the ballot. So, enough about CPC. I want to tell you, there's a saying that if you want to succeed, first you have to show up. Here are a few facts about my opponents. After the highly publicized Board of Selectmen meeting in August about the town's water issues, Mr. Goodrich was not at the November town meeting, where $1.6 million in water projects were approved. I was there. At the same meeting, issues of importance to other citizens of the town, including $4 million to fix the seawalls, money to improve Roach Baseball Field, a new playground for Wampatuck, and the acquisition of the First Cliff property were approved. The plastic bag reduction article was approved. The property tax exemption for elderly homeowners was increased. None of my opponents were there. I was there. Mr. Goodrich, Mr. Tibbetts, I was there. For some of the most important issues, the library, the middle school, and the public safety building overrides, none of my opponents voted on any of those issues, and Mr. Goodrich and Mr. Tibbetts did not attend those town meetings. In fact, in the 10 years Mr. Goodrich has lived in town, April 8th of this year, according to the voter records, was the first town meeting he attended in Scituate. I was at that meeting as... Okay. Well, put it this way, I show up, and I ask for your vote on May 18th. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates tonight. Thank you to the Chamber, to the City Police Department, the JR Hall. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's a great showing, and make sure to turn out to the polls on May 18th. Thanks so much.